Hello, everybody that is joining us today. My name is Carla. I'm a career advisor here at Avocademy, and we have the lovely Angela and Erica here. They are from the service industry and they broke into the field of UX and UI design. So, we're going to chat a little bit more about how they got to break into tech. Um, I'll give it a couple minutes for more people to join us. If you'd like, please comment down below where you're joining us from. And if you want to start asking questions, feel free to do so in the comments as well.
Erica, what did you do in the industry?
I spent a lot of time as a chef.
Okay.
I saw that you were a private chef.
Yeah, that too. Private and restaurant.
That's so cool too. That's amazing. But we'll
It
talk a
was
little bit
fun.
more about like your journey, what your favorite dish to cook is. Like I'm excited and curious to know. Um, Alrighty, so we can get started. So I want you both to tell me a little bit more about yourself. Like, what were you doing before enrolling into Avocademy, and where you're currently working now, and like what your role currently is as a designer. So whoever wants to go first can take over.
Go ahead, Angela.
Sure. All right. So I spent most of my life working in restaurants. I started off as a hostess, became a server, became a manager. Um, I was a server before I left to go into tech full time, but I was a restaurant consultant for a short stint. And I realized I don't want to keep doing this. And I really wanted to find a career that can enable me to, be creative and go into a good industry. And I stumbled upon UX, did a bunch of research into it, and eventually found Avocademy. I am now working in Denver at Project Canary. It is an emission tracking platform, and I am the principal UX designer. And we just hired another Avocademy grad to work with us here as well. So that's been really exciting.
That's awesome. Awesome. What about you, Erica?
Alrighty. So before becoming a UX designer, I went to culinary school for my higher education. And from then I was working in restaurants as both front and back of house, but I eventually ended up going the chef route, ran a bunch of kitchens, and then opened my own private business. And then COVID happened. So when we finally were able to gather again and go back to the restaurants, at least where I was based, people were sitting in parking lots or it was curbside, everything was to go. And I didn't want to cook stuff to put it in boxes anymore. So I was looking for tech jobs because it interested me. I spent 2 days trying to learn how to code, and then I found UX design. And I've
awesome.
been a designer actually for a year now.
That's awesome. I feel like I can relate a little bit. I mean, I'm not a designer, but I was also in the service industry, so I was super excited to chat with you both today. I was also a waitress for a while. Never did as like I was never a hostess, but I was a waitress, and oh my God, the amount of work that you have to put into it is honestly insane. Um, and from like my experience to then coming here to Avocademy and seeing the skills needed to be a designer and learning about UX and UI design, I personally I got a chance to see like all the soft skills that you have in the service industry that you gain from the service industry and how it can relate so well to UX and UI design. So my next question will be like, when did you learn that your skills were going to be super beneficial towards UX and UI design? And what were those skills that you think helped you the most?
Want to
So
go, Eric,
I'll
or want me
say,
to go?
sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I wanted you to go first.
Oh, I'll say that the organization needed to run a kitchen definitely helped in terms of working on a team of designers, um, understanding the problem and what it is you're trying to do. Um, because there's a lot of moving parts in a kitchen, right? I've got cooks, I've got dishwashers, I've got managers and servers. So no, part of being a UX designer is like knowing what's going on everywhere and how it affects the business. And I would say UI design, like coming up with menus and things like that, knowing how to make people happy, but also balancing that with what the business needs. They need to make money. So how do you find that balance? And yeah.
And when do you think that you learned that you could use those skills for your advantage? Was it once you learned UX UI design or when you were doing research about it?
So I didn't think about that until I did Career Jumpstart because I had
Awesome.
to build a resume and a portfolio. And
Mm,
I was like, oh, I have to like sell myself now. So how do I jazz it up? But you know,
yeah.
it all worked out.
No, that's awesome. And what about you, Angela?
So one of the biggest things that I took away from it was, as a server, as a bartender, you always have to read your guests. You have to read the room realistically. As a
Mm,
manager, it was all about like um, maintaining the staff and not only like the workflow itself, but also understanding A, how that workflow goes, B, what your staff needs at that point, and then you're only ever addressing the guests when they're upset at something. So then that's another skill there. Um, and then once I started working as a consultant, it was a lot of like building these standard operating procedures for other restaurants and how their staff is going to flow and function. And once I started looking into UX, and right now I focus more on UX strategy than the actual UI itself. A lot of those planning tools, a lot of the ability to organize, restructure, and quickly pivot when something goes wrong. I mean, Eric, you probably know like how many times the kitchen crashes and you have to figure out what to do with those guests in the dining room, or we're out of this one dessert or this one steak, but we have like three other tables that want it, and you have to like act quickly to solve the problem and talk to somebody about managing their feelings at that point. And a lot of that people understanding or the people reading goes far in UX and UI. Um, and it's almost like hand to hand, like being able to understand people's needs and frustrations is a pivotal point in UX and UI, and a lot of that was soft skills I picked up as a server.
no, everything that you were both mentioning, like it resonates so much. And I get these questions all the time, like, do I need a degree? Do I need like an extensive background in tech to succeed in this field? So for me, I'm like, I've learned so many soft skills in the past from like being in customer service, being a server, having all these roles where it's very people oriented. Like you learn to problem solve, you learn to think outside of the box. Sometimes you just have to, like you were saying, like you have to solve a problem fast and just figure it out because there's no other way. And most importantly, having that empathy, like caring so much about the customer that it's like I will try to help you in every way that I can. So to me, I feel like as long as you have those soft skills, you could definitely succeed in a field like UX and UI. So thank you both for sharing a little bit more about that. So now I kind of want to dive more into foundations, career jumpstart. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second, but I'd love to learn about timeline. Like, how long did it take y'all to complete the foundation scores, and how long did it take you to find a job? It can be an estimate, it doesn't have to be exact. And you can think about it while I explain what Foundations and Career Jumpstart is. So I'll give you those 2 minutes. So to start up with Foundations, Foundations is our educational course here at Avocademy. It's our step one. This is where you learn UX research, UX design, and UI design throughout a period of 8 to 16 weeks. You can dedicate part time into it. You'll work on one project, build a portfolio website, and you'll receive unlimited mentorship. Once you graduate, you get certified and receive a badge that you can put on your LinkedIn profile if you want to show it off. And then we have Career Jumpstart as a step two program where we give you real world experience. You get to work with clients, work on a team with other students, mentors, sometimes project managers, and sometimes developers, depending on the project that you choose. And once you have 3 to 4 projects in your portfolio, then we navigate you through the job search. We provide extensive help with the job search too, and it takes about 2 to 6 months to land a job. And yeah, and hopefully it takes, worst case scenario, about 8 to 12 months for you to fully dive into the field. So yeah, if you'll have more questions about that, feel free to comment it down below. So yeah, timeline. Angela, I don't know if you have the estimate.
So from the time that I finished Career Jumpstart, it took me 3 months to find a job, and I cannot tell you how many countless rejections or just, non-interviews altogether. But I actually didn't attend Foundations. This is back when like Avocademy was a baby boot camp. I had started taking Thinkful right before COVID hit, and I was maybe like around halfway through done with it when COVID started, and I had a death in the family. I had to withdraw, and it's been over 3 years now. I'm still paying that thing off. Yeah, so I had helped my company where I was consulting design an in-house app. So with that and with what I had learned with Thinkful, I found Avocademy and I started the career jumpstart path. And it was awesome. I got to work on some amazing projects. Got to work with some clients who I'm still in touch with, and after I finished, it took, like I said, about 3 months. Lots of interviews, lots of applications went out, and I haven't gone back since.
That's awesome. That's really fast. 3 months. It's incredibly fast.
It was really quick. The market was also a little bit different then. I think like coming out of like COVID, that first like launch of it, people were hiring a lot more quickly. I'm seeing now that it's taking definitely longer to find a job. Even if I'm looking for myself to transfer a position now, it would still be a lot, a lot to just transfer. But the it's definitely worth it because you start applying, you start learning those skills of like talking to the companies. And I know, I mean, it can take time. 3 months is relatively quick, but whenever it happens, it's you're entering a whole new world at that point. I don't work weekends anymore or holidays. It's amazing.
I know, it's such a change. And you got your job in 2021 or in 2020?
My first job was February 1st, 2021.
February 1st. Wow.
Yeah.
February 1st.
Yeah, I had done a couple of jobs before that where the UX work was part of the work that I was doing, but it was a minor part of my role. And so my first official like UX UI designer title was February 1st, 2021.
Awesome. What about you, Erica?
Well, in my case, kind of like Angela, I joined Avocademy. Well, it was like a baby. There were it was not as big as it is now. And so um, my my timeline experience, I think, is different than a lot of people. So I won't really go into detail there. But I finished foundations in February of last year, and then I did the Career Jumpstart program, which was, I think, 3 months to like get a portfolio together and work on projects with other designers, which I think was one of the best resources. Um, I am still in contact with a lot of the students, and as they grow into their own careers, you network through them as well. Um, and after Career Jumpstart ended, it took me 4 months to find a job. And I sent out 781 applications.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to another graduate in another grad panel, and they were mentioning that they applied also to like 800 or something like that. And I'm like, that is determination. That it's like
Right.
wanting it. Yeah, that's amazing. And you got your job, you said in 2022.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That's great. So, in less than a year, both were able to fully change careers. So, that is absolutely amazing. So, we have some questions here, but they're more tailored towards like the interview experience and process. So, I'll go ahead and showcase them to see if you'll have any tips. So, can you share the overall interview experience? Any tips for entry level?
So I'll take this one on. In addition to having been an entry-level designer applying for jobs, I am now also the design manager who just hired an entry-level student. So I know what these hiring managers are looking for, and one of the things that I really enjoy about the Career Jumpstart program, which is why I did it, is they actually place you with these real life clients, and you work with other designers in a team to complete this product, um, which is in and of itself experience. So you're leaving with experience in hand that you can place on a resume and say, these are contract positions that I have completed with a team for this real life client. And actually, here's a link to their website if you want to go see it. And while I was looking, there were a lot of new designers who had just finished boot camps, who had just finished learning, and who had case studies from their boot camps. Um, I'm fully aware of how it is and the potential for growth and learning from people who have been in this position, but it was also very important to me to have. I work in a startup. We're in our growth phase, and we don't have the resources or the employees to mentor somebody from scratch to a full-blown position. So having somebody who had at least had experience working on a real life client, working with other people was pivotal for me. Um, so that's one reason that I always recommend the Career Jumpstart and Avocademy in general, is because the that was the make or break for me as a hiring manager. And I know it's going to be a make or break for a lot of other people. But even as a junior designer going into these interviews, it's all about understanding what value you bring, knowing what you enjoy working on, where your strengths are, and showcasing the capabilities that you have thus far and being able to speak to them. Um, there are so many resources in this bootcamp and in general on how to own that process and how to speak to it, and that's going to set you apart as well.
Awesome. What about you, Erica? Do you have anything to share in regards to this? Any tips that you want to provide? I'll share it again because I think
Thank
I
you.
saw the trend. Of course.
So I'll say the interview experience is going to differ depending on what kind of company you're really looking at. Let's see. For entry level, the people that are hiring you understand that you are entry level. So you don't have to go in there feeling like you're not going to be as helpful as the next person. They know what they're looking for, they know what they're asking for. The important thing is to know in an interview how to present and sell yourself, and how you explain how you use those skills, and how you plan to work with a team if you are going to be on a team and not the sole designer.
So my question for both of you is like, how did you get past that imposter syndrome? How did you feel more confident to go through these processes? I don't know. Anyways, going through the interviews and being like, you know what, like I'm an amazing designer and I'm just gonna share what I know.
I'll go. So after having sent out as many applications as I did, the more you practice, the more confident you get, and the more you, or I should say, the less you start to care about, if people didn't decide to hire you or move forward or whatever the case may be. It's just part of the search. Everybody goes through that. Yeah. I think just being exposed to like interview skills, mock interviews, everything that they offer in Career Jumpstart really lets you practice, so that when you're actually doing it with an employer, it feels like you've done it before.
Yeah. As for the imposter syndrome, I can only speak for myself. I don't think imposter syndrome ever really fully goes away. There's always a little part of you that's like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. But that's the thing, just negative self-talk. But like Erica said, it was just practicing and then actually going out and doing these interviews. And I felt more confident in the ability to talk to somebody with every interview I did. And on top of that, we did those like mock interviews and interview prep, and like just information about what kind of things are going to be asked of you, and how you can prepare yourself to answer questions and talk about these things. And so those resources were huge in helping me feel more confident going into the interview, especially the first like handful of them, where I was like, oh my God, this is totally new. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I had the resources. I had people who were, waiting to hear how it went and ready to prep me before them. So I was very excited.
I agree with you when you say that imposter syndrome may or may not ever go away. And the negative self-talk and all of that. And I'll say something that helps is, networking and finding other designers that may be more experienced than you, and see if you can like get into their brain somehow. Also, if you can somehow turn the energy that you feel towards your imposter syndrome into a motivation to be like, okay, I'm here, but I want to be here. You can use that as motivation and fuel. So mindset.
I love that. That is so true. It's all in here and how you like talk to yourself. I'm curious to know, and you don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but like, did y'all ever practice like by standing in front of the mirror and just like talking to yourself?
I've tried. I've tried doing that, and I felt so stupid doing it, but I would like force myself to do it. And then I stopped because I don't know, I just felt really silly doing it. But I have friends who swear by like these, mantras and self affirmations. Um, so I think those definitely help, especially if you're open to it.
There was an activity in either Foundations or Career Jumpstart, don't remember, where they asked to record yourself telling about yourself as if an interviewer was just meeting you for the first time, and I felt really stupid. So
No.
it's just a matter of getting used to your own voice and looking at yourself on video.
I'm like, trust me, I look at these videos all the time, like once they're posted on YouTube, and I'm always like, the faces I make, how I talk, I'm like, I'm so cringy. But then again, like watching it over and over again, it allows me to also like learn how to speak better, how to like communicate better, how to use my body language. So I love, this might sound weird, but I love to talk to myself by looking into the mirror and just like trying to change my mentality. Like if I'm having a bad day, just like, no, you're not. You're having a beautiful day. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be amazing. Um, and it helps. It has to be a psychological thing. Like it
It
helps so
is.
much. Um, Anyways, I was just a little bit curious about that. I wanted to know if I was the only one. Um, awesome. So we have this question here. So, what sites did you use to apply for jobs? Because I can't land an interview. If you want to share a little bit more about that.
Okay, so as far as the sites I used, I really liked Auto, and then you have the other ones like Indeed and LinkedIn, and honestly, if you Google search jobs in a specific place, those will come up on the Google results. Um, Other than that, I would like to say to you that landing an interview at entry level is a numbers game. It is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely up to the numbers and market, and people will say, look at your resume, look at your portfolio, and those are all that is valid advice. But there comes a point where you can only polish it so much, and it is a numbers game, and you have to keep applying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just filled the UI position here, and in 3 weeks where the posting was live, I had just shy of 400 applicants,
Wow.
Wow.
with another 75 that were disqualified because of, like, they're not in the country or what have you. There was like, certain circumstances, they, whatever. So there were a little over 400 applicants for a junior UI position. And there were so many applicants in that pool that I absolutely really enjoyed and really wanted to bring to this like short list and move them forward in the application process with us. But there's only one spot to fill. And how do you really like narrow it down from 400 applicants to just one person? And so it's not always that you as a designer are not good enough, or your interviews are not good enough, or your portfolio is not good enough. It's just the needs of the company, the team. You can have the best portfolio out of the entire bunch, but if somebody else is a better cultural fit with the team, that might come into play. And so you just have to keep trying and keep working at it. The market is a little more saturated right now, especially for junior positions. um, I used Indeed and LinkedIn primarily, and I applied on some company websites where I could. But it is like Erica said, a numbers game, and you just have to keep plugging away at it until something sticks, because it will stick eventually.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you both. It's again having that drive and that want, like wanting it so badly that you're applying like Erica to 700 applications, and yes, you're gonna get a lot of rejections in the process, but that doesn't say anything about who you are as a designer. It happens. There are automated emails, like it doesn't necessarily have to do with somebody looking at your resume specifically and being like, no, it's just how it is. Just keep trying, keep applying. And if you need anything, if you're in CJ, reach out to your mentors. If you're not in Career Jumpstart, it's okay. Just try to see if you can find a mentor somehow, so you can have that support. Because I feel like going through it alone, it's a little scary.
I
Um,
almost quit. I almost quit at 3 months.
yeah,
hmm But I
it's a
had a
lot.
mentor.
Yeah, I think definitely having that support helps. Like I haven't looked for a job in years, but I remember when I had just graduated from school, I was applying to, I kid you not, and I graduated in COVID, and I was applying to hundreds of jobs, and I was getting rejection after rejection after rejection, no interviews, and I was alone in school. They don't teach you about this. And I remember crying to my mom and being like, am I not good enough? Do people not want me? Like, what is it? Um, and it's like what y'all were mentioning before. Like the more you apply, the more you learn, the more experience you gain, the more confident you learn, and then you start to understand it's not you as a person. It's just it might not be a good fit, and there's a right time for everything. So when that right company comes, you'll get the opportunity, and that's it. It only takes one chance, and then you can just grow from there. But yeah. Awesome. So I wanted to share this because I thought it was super cute. As a service worker, this is giving me so much motivation for the job search.
Love that.
Yeah, we're here for you, Esmeralda. Awesome. So somebody mentioned how the market is very tough to get jobs right now. They also mentioned that a lot of luck is needed for you to find a job. Again, like what we were mentioning before, it is a numbers game. Also, the quality of your portfolio does matter. Having real experience under your belt does matter because it does differentiate you from so many other designers out there. Um, but yeah, it's tough. If you have support, 10 times better. I don't know if y'all have anything to say about that. Angela, I know you were hiring a designer just now. So,
Yeah, I don't know how much of it is luck as much as just perseverance. And I mean, that portfolio really does mean a lot in terms of if you have real life experience versus just boot camp case studies, or, you know, I know I saw a lot of people who were like, oh, I have taken on this design challenge and I'm presenting this. And yeah, that was amazing. And the work was really well done. But with that's like somebody with that level of experience versus somebody who has the client experience and the teamwork experience, and that was just my company's needs, was having at least some experience. um, but it's less about luck and more of the perseverance and keeping up with it. I really wanted to hire somebody with from the service industry. That was like one of my goals, just because the mentality, the work ethic, and the personality that it takes to thrive in a restaurant setting was something that I was like, I'm hoping I find. Like, I wasn't like a must have, but I was like, I hope I find that. And I had a few people who applied. They didn't link a portfolio. They didn't have like any work to show. And at that point, I have nothing to go off of. So having a good portfolio is definitely a strong component of that.
do you think it's important when writing a resume, for example, or submitting applications to talk about like your experience? Like if you're trying to break into UX UI design, to also talk about the experience that you had as somebody that was in the service industry, either a chef or a server or a hostess, anything like that?
I
I
mean, I
felt like I
highlighted it in my
do.
yeah, I highlighted it as like other experiences, and but I was prepared to also talk about how that was relevant in this environment, or like how that has helped me be a better designer or what have you. And that was like a big portion of my about me section of my portfolio was, hey, I'm coming from the restaurant industry and here's how I've applied everything I've learned in the industry to design.
And
I've
Erica, you did
never
the same.
had, yeah, I've never had an office job until I got hired at the startup I worked for.
Mhm.
It's been a year and I'm still adjusting to how I can't talk to people now like I used to when I was a chef. That's not how that works. And
Depends on the company.
like, and I saw a question about what it means by cultural fit, and it's really like, does the company have a culture where they expect you to stay late every day, or is it a remote first culture and it's okay if you work from anywhere? And those are all factors into like reviewing an application and going through the interview process. Those are all things for the applicant to consider as well.
Yeah.
But
I almost didn't
yeah,
get hired here because my hiring manager said I was too professional during my interview. I was too courteous and like very strictly
uh,
professional. He's like, I thought you were super corporate. I didn't want to bring you on.
I like
So
it.
showcasing your personality helps like establish. It might not get you every job. It might not get you every job because the job that you're applying to might be looking for a different type of personality or a different type of culture fit, and that's like how how the company interacts with each other, how the teams work together, how like the interpersonal relationships are, even in a professional setting. And my company, I just got very lucky with a company that happens to um, resemble some facets of having worked in like front and back of house, with the way that we talk to each other, the way we engage with each other and communicate. And it's a little less corporate, a little more social.
Yeah, I agree. I When I was going through the interview process, I knew that when I interviewed with Maka that this was like a good fit because I felt like I could be myself. And I was like, I want to be with the company where I can be me and I don't have to hide like my silly self when I want to be silly and when I have to be professional, show that professional side too. So I think it's funny that you mentioned that like you were being professional during the interview, like how everybody tells you to be, and then they're kind of like, we were not gonna hire you because of
I
that.
don't know. I
A
don't know
lot of
about
it
all
has to
that.
do with reading the vibes too, right? Like
Hmm.
Yeah,
you can
they really
tell
messed me
when
up
you
on
sit
that one.
down.
They messed me up on that one because they put me with like some high level like VPs and directors in that interview, and I'm like, the title itself is daunting enough, and I'm like, I don't know how to act, so I just took on that professional persona because I could hide behind it, and that almost cost me this job.
No, and it's like Erica was saying, it's also like reading the room, reading the person. I think like also as a recruiter or somebody that's interviewing somebody that they need to have that empathy to also like understand like who am I talking to? Who are they? Like what's their background? Like how am I gonna navigate this? Like I've had interviews in the past where um the guy was like the interviewer was super friendly, which in a way made me kind of like hesitant because I was like, I don't know, I wasn't expecting that. It was my first time looking for a job ever, so I was a little skeptical. I expected something different. Um, but I think you can tell a lot by interviews and see like what's the better fit for you. Like, I don't know, we have that sixth sense. I don't know. I feel
It's
like
Yeah.
also it's also really important to note that though, like I want to bring up if you are coming from a new industry or if you're switching into design from something else, your first job is for you to learn, to be a sponge, absorb as much as you can. And sometimes you have to
Mhm.
compromise. Maybe there are things about the job that you may not love, but are you learning there? That's what's most important for your position as you build your career.
I love that. That is so true. That is especially
100%
that
true.
first job, that first job, and then after that, like you can be as picky as you want, but for that one, like learning is everything, especially in UX UI design. You constantly have to keep learning. It never stops. Okay, so we actually got a lot of questions. I feel like so. Let me pull one up. Um, okay. Sorry, I don't remember where we left off. How long did it take you? Okay. I know we spoke a little bit sorry. I know we spoke a little bit about this before, like how long it took you to find a job, how many interviews and applications. I don't know if you want to like spitfire it just if in case this person didn't get to hear it before.
Hi, Aaron, it's daunting. So this was also about 3.5 years ago. So I don't remember how many I interviewed for. It was in the dozens of interviews, a few hundred applications, and 3 months to get the job.
Took me 4 months to find a job. I applied 781 times. I did a lot of interviews, but the one that the round that I went through for the company that I work with now was 3 rounds, and one of those rounds was like a design challenge.
That's all. Do you think it's common to see design challenges on like interview processes or
I,
applications?
I think there's a
For
line. There's a
sure.
line because some people, unfortunately, like people like to take advantage, and if they know someone is going to put their best work forward and get it for free, yeah, if you can suss that out, do it. But it's also very normal for you to like talk through a user flow. You might not necessarily have to be sharing your screen on Figma, but showing that you know what questions to ask and what to include.
Yeah, for this current role, it took me like from the time I applied to the time I started working here, it was around another like 2 months or something. And a few weeks after I applied, I got the email and I started having interviews. It was 4 interviews altogether. I'm also in a little bit, I'm in a senior position right now, so that was also a little more in depth of interview and a little more thorough in the process. I in all of the interviewing and all the job hopping I've done, I think I've come across a handful of design challenges. And I don't know if that's getting more common early on because they want you to showcase your abilities, or if that's going to be a thing later on when you have more experience to work with. I've also seen it more in like more corporate, large team settings where they have people who are going to be reviewing these design challenges. Whereas when you start working with either by yourself as a sole development designer or in a smaller team, that tends to not be the case.
Yeah, no. Awesome. We have so many questions that I'm trying to like focus on saying like what to answer. Um, Let me see. So this one, I think it's really cool. It's from the person that was thankful about the call because they also have experience in the service industry and they want to know about any tips on how to manage the stress levels of job searching. I don't know if you have any like tips for that.
The quicker that you can learn that not getting a job is not personal to you, the better off you will be with handling that stress.
Yeah, you can't take that personally. We said it before. It's a numbers game, and just how many, the sheer volume of people applying for jobs right now. So it's a thing of perseverance and knowing that like that job will eventually happen. I mean, I was still working as a server while I was applying, and even during my first job, I was still working as a server. And so having, as long as you have something to keep you occupied and keep money coming in, it's understandable that it's going to take some time. Frustration is bound to happen, but it's not like you as a person are not good enough. You as a designer are not good enough. It's just there are so many people out there, and the more you apply, the higher your chances are.
What do you, so if you could give yourself advice from like a year ago when you were going through the job search, like what would you tell yourself at that point that you're like job searching and you're stressed out and you have that unknown of like, am I gonna get a job? Am I not gonna get a job? Like, how is this? What would you tell? I don't know. I was gonna say your younger self, but it was a year ago. So,
Honestly, there's not a lot that I could tell myself, like skill wise, because a lot of it I was just getting worn down because I wasn't hearing anything back. And I said before, like for me, it was pretty much 80% mindset, 20% what can I do with the projects that I already have to showcase.
Yeah, I was in a similar boat. Oh, a couple less applications, but but it was a lot of frustration around that time, and I think it was close to the end where I was starting to like I was in like my 300 and something application, and I had only heard back from like a handful, like maybe had interviews with like less than 10 companies, and I was like, why are this ratio is so off? Like something's not making sense. Like am I not cut out for this? And just being patient, because when you put your mind to something, and if you really try, if you're really work towards it, eventually it will happen. It might take a little bit longer than you'd like. It might be a little more frustrating than you'd like, but it will eventually happen.
I love that. Awesome. So, what do you think made your company pick you over the other applicants? That's a pretty good question. I like that.
I don't think I'm gonna have a great answer for this, so I'll go last.
Sure. I got lucky enough where my manager actually told me why she picked me. And a part of it was that I had robust experience in like having worked in a few different companies by that point. The the company that I work for now, a lot of the features that I work on, I had also worked on similar facing features while I was in Career Jumpstart. And like that to her really stood out because she didn't have a lot of applicants who were working in very technical dashboards. And I had already worked on tech dashboards while I was in Career Jumpstart. And so between like having a good balance of experience, having relevant experience to what this company was looking for, even if it was the clients that I worked in Career Jumpstart with. And then on top of that, and she really liked that I had been a server before. She was also in the service industry, and mentality is a particular mindset to work in the industry for as long as I did. And she felt that that would be a good fit for the team that we had. And I think she was right. It's been a little over a year at this company now, and
Nice. My interview to getting hired process was pretty quick. I heard back from the hiring manager an hour after I sent in my application. And
That's crazy.
I had 3 interviews for that job within like a week. So I think that they were just really trying to get more people into the company so that whatever visions they had were going to move forward. Because I mentioned I do work at a startup, and so part of my answer why I say it's not great, because I was taking a strategy where I was applying to remote roles, but I wasn't hearing anything back. So I figured I'm not hearing anything back because everybody wants to be remote now. So let me just look for stuff that's possibly hybrid and local. And as soon as I started applying to those jobs, I heard back from those people way quicker.
I was actually going to say something about that. Like for people who are only applying to remote positions, don't forget you're not just competing with the local market. You're competing with international candidates. You're competing with like anybody who's looking for a UX UI design position within the United States, and that is a much larger pool. So if you are flexible to go in office, and not everybody is, and that's okay too. But if you are flexible to go in office on a hybrid, like half time remote, half time in office schedule, applying for positions in either a city you want to live in or the area that you already do live in is going to massively increase your chances of getting at least getting a call back from that job. Like I moved to Denver for this job from South Florida, so it's much. I don't think I heard back from a single one of my remote applications in most of the years that I've done this job. So there's definitely something to that.
And you can always negotiate too, I feel like you'll get a higher chance of like hearing back from these companies, and you can always like before you sign the contract kind of negotiate like, hey, like 1 day remote, 2 days remote, like 3 days remote maybe, and then from there you can kind of see what's more suitable for you. But I agree. I think when you get to work from the office, sometimes it's really nice because you really get to collaborate with people face to face. So the level of collaboration is so much better. Personally, that's what I think. It's better than like remote where it's like with a camera and like you can't really feel people's emotions via camera. So I like hybrid positions. I think they're cool. Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. Um, I'll look over these questions that we have. We have 4 questions. We'll do rapid fire, but first I want to know, was the switch worth it? Was the change in careers into UX and UI design worth it for you?
So worth it. I was working 70-hour weeks as a server with like, drenched in kitchen stuff all the time. Um, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of painful work, and I am very happy I'm not getting berated by customers anymore. That I think the best part of that. Oh, and then also the weekends and holidays off.
It was absolutely worth it, but I want to make clear, like, I didn't dislike it before, but
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much that's different from going from the kitchen to working in an office or at a desk. And I feel like having both of those skill sets makes you like super powerful for any job that you go to afterwards.
No, 100%. And I know that I was going to ask you this question before, but I'll ask it now before we do the rapid fire. What's your favorite dish to cook?
My specialty is fresh pasta.
Stop. Oh my God. I
I'm
love
coming over for
pasta.
dinner.
Same, I'm gonna bring myself over too. Oh my God. That is amazing. You make it like from scratch, like you hang it, everything.
Yep,
That's
love
incredible.
it.
That is amazing. I see Maka sometimes cooking, and I'm like, I wish I knew how to cook too. I can't cook for my life. I'm like, I'll DoorDash
Come
everything.
on.
Anyone can cook.
I know I can cook. Maybe not
Yeah,
professionally, but
yeah, I like to pretend that I can, but then it's way too salty, and I'm like, whatever. I love it. Um, okay, so into Spitfire. I think that's what it's called. Rapid fire, Spitfire. I don't know.
Let's
Same
do
thing, I
it.
think.
Both.
Right.
Let's go.
It's a good game show.
Awesome. So, when it's time to present your case study in an interview, did you guys do your presentation in your portfolio or did you make a PowerPoint?
I just screen shared my case study and talked through it. I don't think that I would do that now, knowing what I know. I think I would make a separate presentation and like link them to that so that they can follow along with me.
Gotcha. I also shared it within my portfolio. I also only got asked to walk through the case study the in my like junior positions. Now in like the more senior positions, it's not as much walking through the case study as it is walking through like your whole process. So I don't know if I would have made the PowerPoints back then, but probably now more importantly.
Uh, so when you were hired as your first job, what was the first couple of weeks like?
It was awful. I felt like I did not belong there. I felt like I didn't know how to fit. Like I feel like I didn't fit, but that's because I've never been surrounded in that environment before. But what helped me a lot was realizing that, like they hired me, they chose me, so I am bringing something unique to the table and I will find my own way soon enough.
Yeah, my first week of my first job was god awful. I hadn't left like the server mentality, so I was still staying up super late because my shifts would end at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and so I still wasn't used to getting like a normal night of sleep or to go to sleep at a normal time or wake up at a normal time. And this was like one of those places where you have to be there really early, speak really professionally, do not ever curse. And I'm still not that person. So my first week was a little bit rough of like a transition, but more importantly for that job and every other job since then, the first few weeks have always been um, being a sponge and just learning as much as you can about the company, the product, what like the work is like, and what the teams are like. So it's the first few weeks are always more focused on like learning and learning about the company and what you do there than it is about actually like jumping in and designing like day one.
You both use Figma right now at the companies that you're working for.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. I was just curious about that. I'm a very curious individual, so I'll ask like super random questions out of nowhere. Awesome. So my last, oh yeah. So for those that have remaining questions, please go ahead and email info@avocademy.com. And we did go ahead and drop a coupon code down below for $200 off the foundations course. But I have a final question for both of you, and that is if you could give any advice to anyone looking to switch careers into UX and UI design, what would it be in a way?
Oh man, okay. So UX UI is a fascinating field and it is very versatile. So right now I work in a very technical, sciencey company, and I end up having to learn a lot of technical and sciencey things. And there are other types of companies. So if you are interested in transitioning to UX UI, no matter what type of experience you have, you will be able to find something that's kind of tailored or suited to what you're interested in or what you know about, which always makes you stand out more, right? If you have a science background, going into a science company kind of like meshes. But more important than that, like being open to constantly learning is important, and being flexible with yourself and what you do as a designer, because it's always evolving and it's always going to change. For anybody who is interested, I cannot recommend Foundations and Career Jumpstart any more than I already do. And I think it's one of the easiest ways to open up that opportunity for yourself, and one of the best ways to learn the vast amount of things that are out there in the ether of the internet, all kind of like tailored to help you. So yeah, keep learning, keep trying, and you'll find a space in the tech world.
I love that.
Ooh, looking back, it's like I really needed the structure that the Avocademy bootcamp and Career Jumpstart was able to give me, because I tried to do self-taught. Like there's a lot of self-taught people out there. You can learn. You can learn. That is an option. But
we were just talking about that.
Working as a chef, like I can't come home at 2 a.m. and learn more stuff. Like it's not realistic. And so having a structure, and even if you just make a roadmap for yourself, say I'm going to set aside this many hours a week to look at this thing and learn about this thing. I think if you make a plan, your switch is going to go smoother.
We were literally talking about this before we went live. It was like, can you not? Yes, you can. But like the structure, just having the structure and the guidance, like there's nothing that compares to that, at least in my opinion. But anyways, I won't take too much of y'all's time, even though I would love to, because it was so fun chatting with y'all. But thank you so much for joining this grad panel today. It was super, super fun. It really meant a lot that both of you got the chance to participate here today. For those that are watching, thank you for watching. And again, if you have any remaining questions, don't hesitate to email info@avocademy.com. Thank you all for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye, everybody.